Okay, I'd like to call to order the Town of Niskayuna Conservation Advisory Council meeting. This is the April 10th, 2024 meeting, and Laura, would you like to call roll?
Okay, so in the room with us, we have Chelsea Ratner, Chuck Petrowski, and Simran Uterker. Online, we have Vicky Michaela, Richard Frontero, and our consultant, Jim Yenger from Climate Action Associates, and Chairman Strayer.
Great. Okay, we have minutes from the March 6th, 2024 meeting. I was wondering if anybody had any comments on that?
I just have a general question.
Yeah.
I have a general question about minutes, and excuse my ignorance here, but these minutes are almost transcripts, and I'm wondering if if this is normal for Niskayuna to kind of have these like really well developed
Minutes.
reports.
Pretty normal for us.
Okay, yeah.
We don't do verbatim, but we do try to do summary. We do more
Okay.
than just the motion.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the where I was at before. We recorded the motions, the debate, or general issues on the debate around the motions, and then any action taken, and that was it. So I was just curious. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, no, this is the record of the meeting, so if somebody wanted to come back and look at what was said, they could do that.
Yeah, Trish was pretty thorough at this last meeting.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they're not as thorough, but for whatever reason, she was very detailed on these things.
No, it's not a complaint or anything. It's just an observation. So
Yeah,
thank you.
they're more than just the motions.
Does anybody online have any comments that they would like to make concerning the minutes, corrections?
I have none.
No,
Okay, go ahead, Vicky.
She said no.
I don't have anything.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the minutes, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, the minutes have passed. Okay, we have no EAFs tonight, and we don't have really any discussion topics, but we do have the climate greenhouse gas representative.
Mhm.
So, Jim, welcome. If you'd like to address the council, the floor is yours.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Jim Yenger. My firm is Climate Action Associates. We operate in the Capital District. We're based here, but have been working now for about 15 years with state and local governments on climate action planning, greenhouse gas inventory, group facilitation, and things like this. So, we're very excited to be working with your community on your upcoming climate smart communities projects, including a couple of greenhouse gas inventories, one for your local government operations and one for your community. And we'll also be working with the community on a greenhouse gas or climate action plan for government operations. So a little bit more about my background. I've been doing this for many years, and I have a number of the staff in DEC in the Climate Smart Communities program actually used to work for my firm. A lot of members of the state have graduated from me. I've been working and training, experts for many years in this area. I also facilitated the state's greenhouse gas inventory protocol for communities. The guidance that is being used for these inventories and others are things I've been working on for many years. So I'm excited to get started on this, and I'm glad and very happy that you picked our firm to help lead you through this. So I don't know if, Laura, you wanted to say anything. I can give you a quick overview of what you and I have been talking about as a work plan, which we'll be working with this council with over the next couple of months. If you wanted to say something beforehand, go for it. Otherwise, I can just start going through what we were thinking. And everyone can ask questions, and please keep it free form. This is very informal. So
Yeah, if you want to go over the work plan, I think that'd be great. If I think of something that you don't talk about, I'll jump in.
sure, absolutely. So we'll be working with this council for regularly over the next couple of months. So as I stated, what we're trying to accomplish here are 3 products. So 2 greenhouse gas inventories. The first one will be for your government operations. So we'll be working with your staff to go through and document all the different facilities and services that you offer. So we'll be looking at each of your facilities, documenting the energy usage, electricity, natural gas, oil, fuel oil, if any, to create an emission inventory. We'll be working and looking at your fleet and profiling the different kinds of vehicles that you're operating, both on-road and off-road types of vehicles, and taking a look at the greenhouse gas inventories coming from those. We're going to be looking at everything that is in a typical greenhouse gas inventory. So we'll be looking at the wastewater treatment plant and documenting emissions and things coming from that facility. We'll be looking at ways that solid waste that you may be generating or creating emissions. We're also going to be looking at new things. I know many of you, if you know the climate space, there's a big move to electrification happening in the state. So we'll be adding some things for refrigerants that you may be using in government operations. Heat pumps do have them. They do have a greenhouse gas footprint. So we're going to start being cognizant of, the footprints of associated solutions for climate action as well. So we're going to be very comprehensive in this. And part of this is going to lead up to a process that we're going to facilitate with members of this council, as well as staff and whomever, it appears to be appropriate. We'll be talking through and documenting through the climate action plan a roadmap and solutions to reduce emissions. We'll be looking at different options in all the facilities. So we'll be looking at the different types of heating and cooling systems that are available. We're looking at your infrastructure plans and other kinds of things. So, the idea is we'll create your footprint, your greenhouse gas inventory, and then work with this council and staff to decide how you want to make a plan. Do you want to set an emission reduction target, or how do you want to proceed? There's many different ways. So it's an engagement process. It's an ongoing process. It's very data driven. And so for the first, Laura and I discussed, we're working right now to try to meet some fairly quick deadlines. So the Climate Smart Communities program, you're looking to get enough points to be certified as bronze. I believe, Laura, that's correct. So you're looking to get to a bronze level certification, and the next deadline for submitting materials is July 5th. So we're trying to get the inventories, the community and government operations pieces done and submitted prior to that deadline. So we're going to be working on the inventories pretty quickly. The climate action planning phase, that's when we work with you to discuss the results and start thinking through the strategies that you may want to implement. That's a longer process. That will extend beyond July and probably well into this year. So we'll be working on a step process. That climate action planning process also includes some public engagement. I believe we have several public meetings that we'll be holding, depending on the flavor of engagement that you would like to have, to get feedback on the process and the proposed solutions. And that will extend probably past, as I said, well past July for the climate action planning piece. So let me think, feel free to ask questions, about this process. And the inventories, as I said, there'll be a distinct one for your government operations. And then we're going to do a distinct one for your community as a whole. So that's all residences, all businesses, all vehicles on your road, everything. And that's a bigger process. The inventory is much bigger. You're going to find that your government operations are a few percentage of your total community footprint as a municipal government. Those are the amount of emissions we'll probably find. And we'll look at different solutions for each of those, community and government operations separately. So that's where we're going. There's going to be some input that you may want to provide when you do a greenhouse gas inventory. There's different ways to do it. So for example, if we're looking at municipal operations, Of course, energy information we will be able to find, but there's other things like employee commute. There's optional sources of emissions that some communities want to include in their inventories. Like, for example, your employees, where are they commuting from? What is the footprint associated with that kind of, with that activity? Those are optional sources. So there's a number of different things in a greenhouse gas inventory that you can include, or you don't have to. So we'll be working with you and Laura and her team to figure out what is appropriate or what you would like to include.
So I have a question on that.
Please, go for it.
If we include commutes, is that just Niskayuna residents, or do we try to capture, let's say, commuters passing through the town on the major arteries?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So there's two answers. So one related to the government operations inventory. So that is just a subset of the inventory related to the operations of town government. So employee commute as an optional source would just be a survey of employees to find out how far people are going, what kind of vehicles they're using, and that would be an additional kind of optional piece of information you might attach to the government operations piece. The community inventory as a whole, that will have a footprint for all the vehicles on the road. So you'll have a couple of different things. You'll have a snapshot of just vehicles on the road, whether they're kind of starting and stopping inside the community or just passing through. And we're going to try to, working with CDTC and some of our other partners, the Capital District Transportation Committee, or now Transportation Council, we'll try to break your profile into the emissions from the residents that live within Niskayuna, as well as those that are just passing through the arteries. So we'll try to break it down so you'll get a sense for the emissions, what is attributed to the highways and what's not. So I don't know if hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that answers my question. It also raises another question I had.
Please.
When we look at the commuting, do we do it by road or is it just the town? I mean, for example, like Route 7, we have Route 5, and we have Balltown Road. It might be helpful to know what the contribution of each of those are individually, or is that not part of the study?
Well, that's a very good question. That's part of that is to be determined. So we work with a number of partners on these projects, and one of them is the Transportation Council, and we have working with them, we have a flow model on where emissions are coming from by individual roads. So the network of roads is modeled pretty accurately. So we're working to see if we can update that. We have a version of it from a couple years ago. So in a nutshell, we may be able to break it down by specific road. We may do it by functional class, like highway versus small collectors and things. So part of that is to be determined. And we'll see how we do. A typical greenhouse gas inventory doesn't break it down by individual road, but we might be able to if you have interest in that. So we'll do our best. And that's part of our feedback. If you provide us kind of things you're interested to know about, you know, what's the emissions of this versus that, or we can try to find it out and include it in our analysis.
Yeah, because, well, so one advantage I could see to doing greenhouse gas emissions for individual corridors would be like if Route 7, for instance, was our highest emission road, that may help us if we're working with CDTA or something to do a bus route on it or
That's what I was
something.
thinking.
Yeah. Or really like target that area for alternate transportation measures.
Is there a CDTA bus there? I don't think so, right?
Oh yeah, there is.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were actually considering Route 7 for a rapid transit line, but the ridership along Route 7 is between Schenectady and Troy with very, very little usage in Niskayuna.
I see.
Right. And for those in the Niskayuna who work for the state downtown, there's only one route, and that's to go all the way down to Lowe's down there, and that's the bus. So you have to drive all the way down Balltown Road, park your car, hop on the bus there.
On Route 5
On
to
Route
get
5
to Albany.
to get
Yeah.
to Albany.
Because the one on Route 7 just goes to Troy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a tough choice.
This is very exciting, though. It's really cool stuff you're doing, Jim. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we hope that whenever we do these, you learn something new. You'll find interesting patterns and things in your data and where your emissions are coming from. So it's interesting. I'm taking notes. I mean, we work with CDTA all the time too. So are you saying you do have CDTA routes that are already going up and down Route 7, but you don't have a lot of ridership right now?
Yeah.
And entry points? Because we can find out, we can include this in the inventory. I know everyone from CDTA, so we can pull all of these numbers and include them. I'm just taking notes.
I've actually taken the route or the bus on Route 7. It's the 370, and there's a decent amount of people on it normally when I take it. I catch it on Union, take it downtown, or it cuts onto Union from Route 7.
Yeah, you take it from Union to downtown Schenectady, though?
Yes.
Yeah. So that bus is full, but what it does is it goes between Schenectady and Troy, and it doesn't stop a lot in Niskayuna. Because we were talking about they may do a rapid bus route between Schenectady and Troy, and they're considering not even having a stop in Niskayuna.
So what is
There's
that?
there's plenty of ridership on the bus, but it's not driven by any Niskayuna residents.
Would the
Well, not
rap-
any. Clearly, you've taken it. But
With the rapid route, does that mean there's tons of buses on there? Or is that...
yeah, so the rapid routes, my understanding of them, Jim, jump if you know, is that they run very regularly with extremely limited stops, and that's so that people can count on their regular timing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. So that's why they're rapid. They have very few stops. So they try to serve the densest area. So if you were to get a stop, you would have to have pretty consistent ridership at that location. I think that's what they would be looking for. So if you had a location where you could, fill half a bus or something that might be something they would consider.
Yeah, that's what they told me. But right now we do not.
Yeah, we had one in ShopRite Plaza, but no more.
Nope, that one still comes. So there's also one that runs between ShopRite Plaza and Rotterdam Mall.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which my daughter likes to ride. And that one has a fair amount of ridership. When ShopRite's open, a fair number of people, because there's very limited amounts of supermarkets in Schenectady.
Yes.
So people ride the bus to go to ShopRite. I think that when Market 32 opens, that probably they'll come back.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome.
All right. Well, we will definitely. This is interesting. These are the kind of things that hopefully every one of each of these calls will find new things to explore. So we'll certainly include that. So any other questions or interest? So, and I did mention, Laura, you have two industries that you have GE, I think, and what was the other, Laura, that we talked about?
Capital. Yeah. It's the Knowles Atomic Power Lab. And we were saying that we can probably get some emission data from GE, but I don't think we'll be able to get anything from Knowles.
No, actually, don't
You think they might?
They issue an annual report?
They do. Should we
That
look and see if
strikes
there's
me
any?
as
Yeah.
a pretty comprehensive report.
So maybe we'd be able to infer emissions from that.
Yeah, I have not looked at it in a long time, but that's a
Yeah.
public source of their footprint.
I do have those. They do issue that to us
Yeah.
once a year.
I feel like that's super important for this because there's so many people coming in and out of there throughout the day.
Well, I don't know if they'll look at the cars, but they look at their business
Okay.
Yeah.
and
Anything we can get.
try to. come
Yes.
up with-
So you may find employment, which would help determine the induced transportation demand from that. But if they do have energy usage, that would be great. As Laura and I discussed, I also work for the state. I operate something called the Utility Energy Registry, which is a public registry the utilities have to report to produce energy usage by city, town, and village. So through that, we already know what your consumption footprint is within your boundaries, but they redact the largest sources, and they have two customers redacted, so we know who they are,
So
GE
we
and
think
this
that's
lab.
GE and Capital.
Yeah.
We think that's who those are.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Jim. Just another question. And I know this probably isn't that big of an issue for our town, but I'm guessing this also includes agricultural emissions?
Yeah, so in the country, yeah, sorry, in the community inventory, ag emissions are there. Those are typically livestock related emissions and fertilizer based emissions,
Great.
typically the biggest. So if you have any sort of crop acreage where you're using nitrogen fertilizers, that will create a footprint and it will be included if we can find it, as well as livestock. So I suspect it's pretty small for Niskayuna. But wow, we've done this inventory up in Washington County, and the cows emit more than cars up there. Actually,
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
I think we used to have a few cows on Rosendale Road.
We
I
still
don't
yeah,
do,
they're
yes.
still there.
They're
Yeah.
still there, yeah.
And there's some fields on Niska Isle, and there's some farms on Route 7,
That's
actually.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 5 or 6 farms
Burger.
still. Yeah, the
There's
burger
a
farms.
burger
Yeah.
farm. Okay, yeah. We got some of that.
Yeah, so if we can find, to do those inventories, you need a livestock estimate. So, sometimes county cooperative extensions have it, but if you have a livestock estimate for the town, I mean, we'll certainly help it look for it. We could, create an emissions footprint. It's not going to be a lot, but there were some recent changes to greenhouse gas protocol that New York State under the Climate Act made, which are not adopted universally. They're a little controversial, actually. Which increases the footprint from agriculture pretty substantially. So we're getting lots of interesting feedback from the ag community on this. And it just came up this year or last year when the protocol changes were made. So, but it'll still be small. For Niskayuna, it's still going to be pretty small. But for ag communities, their footprints are going up significantly because of the changes.
So you separate out CO2 from methane?
Yes.
emissions? Uh-huh.
Yeah. So all of the gases. So you'll have CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, which is something from fertilizer and wastewater treatment plants. But we're also going to be breaking out for you refrigerants. So hydrofluorocarbons, those are what are used often in heat pumps. And people, so there's a drawback to some of the current heat pumps that use HFC 134 because those are heavy greenhouse gas sources when they leak out. So we'll be looking at refrigerants, and perfluorocarbons, and even utility operations use something called sulfur hexafluoride. So if we can find a footprint of that, if you have big substations, just for your interest, we're trying to give you a complete footprint. So for your own learning purposes, you see where all this stuff comes from. It might be interesting.
We have a substation, but I don't know if it's considered big.
Yeah, so utility substations will use sulfur hexafluoride as a refrigerant. It's very powerful greenhouse gas, but I think New York's trying to phase that. That's a New York State Climate Action Plan issue. Obviously, the town is not going to be regulating the utility operations at the substation, but that's just for your interest. So any other questions on the inventory or any other interesting things that you might think we should be looking for that you've always thought about as what do you think is important in the community? Or
just another question, and again, I apologize for not knowing this, but are we considering in your government operations inventory that excludes the schools or includes the schools?
Yeah, so those typically would not include the schools. Typically, government operations inventories are just town-owned facilities. Now, we could include them, or we could try to, or if there's an interest within the network of school districts or within the school district itself, if somebody wants to come forward and do their inventory from the school district, we can certainly help them out. In fact, I'm working on the school. I'm working in Westerlo on my daughter's school district right now, helping them do an inventory as a school project.
The schools would be included in our community inventory, even if it's more general, right?
Correct. Yeah. So yes, exactly. So the schools are going to show up in the utility aggregated data under the commercial line. So what happens is the utilities will be reporting data. So you're going to be getting roll-ups within your community for residential, commercial, and industrial. And all the government operations will be redundant. That'll be in the commercial line, and the schools and anything, hospitals and institutions usually will show up in the commercial line there.
And
So everything will be there.
And like when you do a school inventory, do you look at their bus routes and stuff like that too?
Oh, yes, yeah.
But we wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily do that for community because we're not doing the deepest dive into schools for community.
Yeah, so the way a community transportation footprint is typically done is that we will work with CDTC, the Transportation Council, and the state, and we'll pull data to try to get an estimate of the total miles traveled on your road network. And then we'll look at the typical breakdown of whether, what percentage are going to be heavy duty vehicles and trucks versus light duty vehicles, and use profiles of things to kind of give a snapshot footprint of what we think is out there. But it doesn't break down specifically like the school bus fleet, because it would just profile, like traffic monitoring will say here on Route 7, we have 20,000 cars per day that pass by. And when they do it, they'll count the cars and they'll profile them. They'll figure out what percentage are trucks, buses, and light duty vehicles, but they wouldn't, break out a school district. But if you wanted to ask and you wanted to call the school district and say, tell us what your diesel consumption is, we could easily throw that in, as an information item, if they're interested or you're interested. That wouldn't be difficult to do.
It's probably not a hard number, right? Just their aggregate diesel
Yeah, they
consumption.
could probably do that.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
they would or not, but we could ask them.
I think that would be helpful. The other thing that I would think would be helpful, and I don't know if you can actually do this or not, but are there like stats on like the development of open space and density and how that would increase the town's carbon footprint? So like, for example, if we had a parcel of land, and it wouldn't be specific necessarily to this unit, but there must be some generic models that was wooded and then put a housing development in X amount of houses, would we be able to determine what that footprint could be?
So yeah, in that case, you're talking about land use change. So you're saying if you convert an acreage of a land type like forest into a development, suburban development with a mixed amount of pavement and grass and stuff, and so that has an impact on the sequestration of that land type. You're losing carbon typically if you're removing a forest and doing something else. So are you specifically asking about that? So like trying to figure out what your impact is from development?
Yeah, sometimes, we don't have a lot of land, still large open space parcels in this unit, but we still have a couple, and it would be helpful to this committee if we could evaluate perhaps the impact on the environment from a carbon footprint.
Yeah, so like if we're doing our climate action plan and we say these are ways that we can reduce the impact, but by the way, if this land coverage was to change here, you'd get so
help
much
us make
more emissions.
decisions.
So it'd
Yeah.
be better if you could keep some of these forested areas too, or something like that.
And that could add to our conservation easement
Program.
that we're just trying to push through. to
Yeah,
see-
it'd just be another tool to build
Exactly.
support
I like that.
for some of these things we envision
Yeah.
in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry, I've got a dog blowing up over here because my wife's home with our picking up our daughters from softball. So, all right, I think they're quiet. But everything you were talking about is very exciting, and there is work in that direction. It's not specifically included in our scope of work, but if you do a national resource inventory and do your land types profiling, there is thinking, and I'm actually working at the state level on this and working on developing a carbon sequestration model for different land types with a tool specifically to help you determine if you change 1 acre to another, what your carbon impact is for exactly this purpose. So like if somebody's bringing a development to you and say, I'm going to take 5 acres and do something with it, here's what its natural state is. This is what its carbon sequestration state is. And then I want to change it and do something else with it. And at the end of the day, what is it? What is its new carbon sequestration state? And what is the impact? Have you lost it? Have you increased it? And therefore, if you want to start thinking about ways of saying, hey, I want to approve something, but I'm going to require that you add sequestration to kind of, mitigate some of the losses that you're doing. We are thinking that way. In fact, there's a lot of people interested in this. So, it's good to hear that you're interested in using these policy tools for this, because that's part of, I think, almost an extension of what Seeker's supposed to be. You kind of, you bring forward a proposal to develop a big chunk of land, and you think of carbon sequestration as like a public steward of You know, you want to make sure you're not losing it more than you need to. So we're thinking that way. We might be able to get something where I'm actually been working on a tool on this. So maybe we'll bring it in and use you as a test case. You know, it's an idea of you plug in what acres of land type you're going to be converting, and it just gives you an impact on the loss or increase of sequestration for it. So that could go. I mean, you could also consider using a natural resource inventory. You could probably calculate for the town what your actual sequestration is right now. So you take all your land types, so you could probably estimate how much carbon is held inside the boundary and all your forests and all of the grasses and everything using these approaches. So if you're interested in that, we could try to include that in the community inventory part of it. Just thinking as we're
Yeah,
talking.
and there might be another component to that, because you're not only losing the carbon sequestration, but you're also adding cars on the road because you paved surfaces and have houses be or buildings.
Yeah, to hope for new construction development proposals too in the future. We can like, well, this is what it's going to add.
Right. Well, exactly. That's very interesting. I mean, you could add your induced footprint is the new use of the land, which is transportation, energy, whatever. And then you also have the physical change to the parcel, the sequestration changes of developing it. So yeah, you could look at both of those components.
It's kind of cutting edge, but instead of thinking about you're adding one more car to the road, like you're adding this much more greenhouse gas emissions to our town, and here's the threshold that we want to be at or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely an impact there.
Yeah, if you're thinking along those lines, it's very cutting edge,
Yeah.
and it's very far out there. It's kind of the next step, but you know, it's controversial. It's very difficult. A lot of communities would never even tolerate thinking about this. So, you know, if you're thinking about it, there'll be definitely interest in exploring it with you, you know, from a number of different parties we work with. So
I just feel like it's easier to speak about it when you have numbers to show and say this is legitimately what we would see happen versus just saying, oh, we don't want to increase, that much more development. Like these are numbers we can work with.
Yeah.
So I think
Right.
that's really cool.
Niska unit tends to be, I think the population in general tends to be very data driven.
Mhm.
oh, okay.
So, that type of stuff I think would work well
Yeah.
in a community like ours.
Yeah, do you have and Laura, I don't remember if you have a well-defined GIS program in the town to render some of this information, because there will be a lot of data here, and it's a lot of interesting information to map and take a look at it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have SIMS, which is a Schenectady Internet Mapping System run by the county, and then we have our own ArcGIS system. But our student representative had a question.
Oh, okay, please.
Yeah, sorry. I just had a couple questions. So I think my first question was just to clarify. So what exactly is the timeline, and how how will the meetings take place? What type of meetings? And generally, I just wanted to understand how this would sort of help me with my second question. But
Well, sure, and I appreciate all of your questions. So there is not, I've been doing this a long time. There's no formal real process. It's really the flavor of how you want to act, interact as a community and as staff. So we kind of make it up as we go. But, the inventory phase, which is the first couple months. So I mentioned we have to meet a July 5th deadline to get the inventory stuff. So there's going to just be a lot of data work. That's a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily require long meetings like this. It's really just behind the scenes stuff. But we'll probably be having at least bi-weekly meetings during that period, and Laura will figure out with appropriate staff and parties that hold the information that we need. So, for example, we'll have to meet the wastewater treatment plant operators to talk with them. So it's probably going to be bi-weekly meetings, maybe more frequently, with a lot of data work in between. And then the process of after that, the climate action planning part, that's where this group and the staff, we come together more regularly, and we'll go through each sector that you have an influence on, and just brainstorm ideas. I'll present things that I know that other communities are doing, you're coming up with great ideas that I haven't even thought of using some of your zoning tools. So we'll kind of brainstorm and go through and start listing some of the options and then work on quantifying their impacts. And so that happens. It's probably going to be a 3 to 6 month period, depending on how fast we want to move, but yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to engage if that's kind of where you're going. Hopefully that tees you up for your second question.
Yeah, so I think this was kind of discussed during the last CAC meeting, but I guess one like important aspect of like the working group from Niskayuna for the for the action plan and the National Resources Inventory was involving Niskayuna High School students. And unfortunately, the March 22nd meeting was during school, so I couldn't make that, and neither could anybody else. But I lead our the Niskayuna Rotaries Interact Club, and that's like climate based. So, and we're all a bunch of high schoolers, so we'd all be very happy to like be in future meetings and be involved with this project. That was, and that's why I was asking about like the format of the meetings, but if they're not like during the school day, we could certainly make them, and we could make like the walks and those sort of things as well.
And me.
Yes, I'm always very excited. I have 2 daughters that aren't quite in high school, and I'm always trying to support this kind of thing. So you should attend the meetings, and we can even maybe go one step better, and I'd be happy to come to your school and talk about it. In fact, the tool that we're building for the town to do the inventory for government operations, I designed these things. I designed them to be easy to use, and they are tools that a number of different young professionals have used, and it's now statewide standard. The state gives this out for free. And so you may be able to make use of it if you have a club, and maybe possibly work within your school building to do your own inventory. So, I've been thinking about this for my own daughter's school. And so, maybe we should meet at one of the meetings when I come in person. And, if you're interested in having a small school project, you can pull your energy bills, and they work the same way, even for a single building or a school district. So,
is there going to be a meeting at Niskayuna High School? Or
unlikely, but I'd come in, if you come to one of these meetings and we talk afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You could potentially just come in one day for your group and give you a presentation on how it would work.
Yeah. Oh, like come into one of our club meetings. Okay.
Possibly, yeah. So let's keep the dialogue going,
yeah.
because I'm interested. I want to make sure that students have the opportunity to try to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And the tools that we make are pretty easy to use, and if you like data and numbers and you can use spreadsheets, you can probably figure out a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we would all like to be involved with data as well.
Because the cool thing about that, Simran, is maybe because it's like a recognized club through the school, you might be able to get the data, and then give it a shot at your best take at the inventory if they don't want to do it, and then you can provide that data to us. It'd be better than us just aggregating everything.
Oh yeah, like doing it separately or
just so that we'd have a better sense of where the emissions are coming from
the school.
And then if we want to engage them with some thoughts, or you guys can engage them with some thoughts for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. So I guess when's the next meeting is April.
Our next meeting is in May. What is it? It's on our agenda. May 1st.
May 1st.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure for one of the meetings I'd want to bring the rest of the club, but I'm not sure when that would best be.
Well, the nice
We can
thing,
sort of work
I
that
think
out.
I probably already took, but Simran's going to be my intern this summer, so.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
You'll know everything.
There we go.
Don't worry, you'll know.
Do we have any other questions?
So if there's no more questions, I think my part is done here.
Yeah, thank you.
Very excited to kick this off.
This was really informative. Thank you for meeting with us.
You're welcome. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Ashok sent in some updates for the natural resource inventory. So Laura, if you could present them, we can sort of take a look at them and go through them. Unfortunately, he's not available tonight.
Okay, and just before we do that, I just on the agenda had the updates to the NRI.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know someone said that they couldn't make that meeting. It was during the day, but we met with DEC and outlaid our plan for how to do our natural resource inventory, and they approved of everything. And I think we did determine dates for the walkthroughs, which I'm sure I wrote down somewhere. I'll try and get them out to you guys.
I think it was in Ashok's email.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it
Yes.
says next meeting with consultant is April 23rd at 11. And then first consultant site visit is May 25th. Is that?
That sounds
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's so he's doing multiple walkthroughs of some of the properties
Yes.
Starting May.
starting in May. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So I guess.
And it's a Saturday, May 25th. So no school.
Yeah. I know he does the walkthroughs of the properties on the weekends.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that would probably work better than like
The DEC meeting.
yeah,
Yeah.
the DC
Yeah.
meetings are like during school.
Yeah, I
days.
think it's okay because the DEC meeting doesn't need to have the whole working group. It's really just bouncing off the DEC because it's grant funded, what our plan is.
Yep.
And they like to see involvement, but I don't think you have to see the community there. You know.
Yeah, I
You should-
think. Yeah, go ahead.
She basically said they don't need to be at every single one of our meetings at the DEC. The DEC lady was like, "You're doing a good job." It was funny. Okay, so those dates are there, and that was a good meeting with the DEC, and we'll move forward with that. And then I'm going to bring up on the computer now. So Ashok's been working on. We changed it so it's not just the Bethlehem tools for land preservation, but it's now like sort of a suite of tools for the land preservation. And he attached in his email. Oops. I don't know. I know it just came in. I don't know if you guys had a chance to download it or not. Bring it up. So one is a study sort of quantitatively associating nature engagement. Some people call it forest bathing, exposure to nature with well-being. The Tree Council actually works on that fairly regularly and has some other studies that are like that. So I highly recommend reading that one. And then his other the middle were, so I don't know if you guys remember that the other consultant that we're using for NRI is also named Jim.
Mhm.
And
That's where I just saw his name and I'm getting.
yeah, we
confused
have
now.
we have multiple Jims.
Okay.
And he was telling us about the reason that we do NRIs and like the Bible, the NRI Bible that he uses. And so Ashok sent out the couple chapters of why we do an NRI and what we're trying to accomplish with the NRI. Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the land trust?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the economic and tax-based benefits of land conservation. I'll just wait. Hold on. I'll share my screen one more time. I'm just gonna read the titles because I don't really think that we need to go through it all. But oops, where'd it go? These are the kind of things we've been talking about. Open space reduces the tax burden on residents. Open space improves property values. Open space reduces spending on infrastructure. That's the one that you talk about a lot, right there.
Mhm.
Open space attracts business investment. Open space promotes healthy lifestyle and public health. And that's from the Land Trust and Alliance. This is the same thing he sent to us before about what we should do. So if we were getting close to wanting to put together a program that the town could adopt to set aside funds to try and protect the open space, we have to put together a program that we could then bring to the town board to potentially adopt. And he's got the term conservation easement program, the parkland set aside fund, and the farms and forest fund.
Yeah, we also we need to get the information from the company.
About that you did of the other
Yeah.
land preservation
Yeah.
tools.
'Cause
Yeah,
there's
so we
there's
should
a lot
combine them
out
both.
there, and the stats are actually really good. If we were to really like develop a plan for the town based on other communities in New York State, if you can make the case to set up a preservation fund,
Yeah.
it generally is adopted by the residents. I mean, it's like 80% adoption rate.
That's amazing.
So
That's wonderful. And that tool that Jim has kind of working.
well, that's what I was thinking.
I really like that idea though, to be able to present those kind of numbers,
I
but
like it too because there's a lot of established criteria for reviewing subdivision proposals based on data, like
Mhm.
volume of traffic and stuff like that. And if you can get reasonably vetted numbers for what the impact is going to be for greenhouse gas emissions, maybe you can even start taking impact fees for greenhouse gas emissions. And then you can use those to do
What I'm-
open land
What I'm
preservation
thinking
too.
is,
Yes,
this
I love that.
plan will be done before the comp plan goes out, so we can roll those objectives into the comp plan.
Oh, the land preservation tools.
No, the greenhouse gas.
Oh,
inventory.
yes, the climate action plan will be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that would provide the tool and the power behind
yes,
doing it.
I think that's a really good idea. I love it. Ashok is missing out.
Yeah. Well, he put it together. We can
Yeah, we
have him
can-
combine what the comp plan was working on with what he's been doing for the
Yeah.
CAC.
Yeah.
And then,
It'll need to be massaged a bit, because
Absolutely.
they were just notes.
I know. And I definitely, I was trying to help him a little bit there. So I'll make sure I'll reach back out and let him know if he needs anything.
Okay, good.
This is all very good
I'm
news.
curious, whether there are examples of towns that do, multiple land protection, options, or if towns do one or the other. I just would like to talk to him about that and see. I know, Bethlehem and other communities, he talked about the easement, the farms and forests and the parkland. Well, the parkland, I think we do that, right?
we do
Um,
the Parkland.
But the farms and forest fund, do we do that at all?
Nope.
No.
But Bethlehem definitely does at least two.
Yeah, they do. If you go on and you search for open space preservation in New York State, you'll see that there is a ton of tools out there, and a lot of communities are employing a lot of different tools. And some of them I think are appropriate for a town like Niskayuna, and then some of them might be harder to implement in a town like Niskayuna. I don't think it's one particular tool that is the best tool, but there's a toolbox that I think would require us to take some action to implement. But
Yeah, because like for instance, if we were doing some of them, the town can do on its own by potentially amending the zoning code or something like that. But the big one, the conservation easement, we have to do in conjunction with the fire districts and the lighting districts and the school, because it doesn't just impact the town tax. It's a full tax impact. So all of the entities that are on your tax bill have to agree.
Oh, it comes out of both
Yes.
county
Yeah.
and school?
Yes.
And there's
Oh.
also some funding options that the town could employ that requires state legislature approval. But that has happened in the past.
Yeah, I think typically if the town reaches out to their legislature and says we want this,
It can happen.
the state doesn't.
Hey, the more numbers we got
Yeah.
to show and support it, then the better.
Yeah, and there's actually good examples of the type of like arguments that communities have made in reports. And it looks like at cost per housing unit,
Yes.
traffic impacts,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff that Ashok has here about the quality of life and stuff like that. I think it's a
Greenhouse gas emission impact.
greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a strong argument for preservation. So,
Big advocate.
yeah, we should definitely take that on.
So is that what we're calling land preservation?
Yeah, we
rules?
changed that. It was saying Bethlehem easement program. So we
But we're
changed
not
it to the
Bethlehem.
land preservation tools.
Yeah, Ashok and I had talked to the supervisor, about a year and a half ago
Okay, yeah.
about the Bethlehem, and she had interest in it, but she was also asking us for what other tools were available. So,
Yeah.
I think she's very interested in the whole toolbox.
Okay. I love that.
Okay.
Options are good.
Yeah, so Ashok should be at the next meeting. So more to come on that one.
Okay.
Okay. We had talked last time, and it's not on the agenda, maybe we can do it next time, about just the constraints that we need to work in, and it had to do with, some of the solar panels and some of the
Oh, no, I
issues
put that.
surrounding-
That's number 10.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
missed
I
it.
added it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, then why don't we start going through the climate initiatives, or do you want
Okay,
to do number
yeah.
10 first?
No, for pesticide outreach, I can do them super fast.
Okay,
Pesticide outreach, Ellen can't make Arbor Day, but Ashok and Vicky are going to man a booth, and it'll have pesticide outreach and Lomo data and Quiet Niskuna data. And that's usually gone pretty well at Arbor Day, so they are going to be able to do the pesticide outreach at Arbor Day. And Trish and I will get all the signs and everything for people who want to buy them when they come. And then the Lomo, the only update to that is we have to really wait for the soil to be drivable in order for the county to come and bring the composting, but we do have the seeds, and so if it would stop raining for like a week, we can get going on the next chunk of that field. So Ellen picked out a different set of seeds so that we can try multiple different types of wildflower seeds out there, and we bought them. So now we're just waiting for the weather to be nice to us.
So probably May for planting.
Maybe it just depends on the weather.
I know. I'm waiting too.
And then, Vicky, do you want to give an update on what we learned when we were talking in the Quiet Niskuna?
Yeah, so Laura and I met for about an hour a few weeks ago about, because now electric land care tools are included in that list of areas that the town can look at to get then points to get to different levels, to be able to then get money to do some of the things that we want to reduce our emissions in the town and do more, stuff with renewables. So we met about that. We talked about the fact that I think you said, Laura, there's about $10,000 that we weren't aware that we had by just doing some type of training.
Right. So we're gonna submit the training, and if we're awarded the $10,000, we want to see if we can apply that to purchasing electric lawn care equipment.
Right. And then in addition to that, if we do some education, it can be online, it can be, in person, it could be a combination of different things where we're educating community members about, things like, electric vehicles, geothermal, heat pumps, things like that. Then, they look at how many new registrations, car registrations in a given period of time are for EVs, not hybrids. They don't look at hybrids, but EVs. And then we get credit for that. We don't have to necessarily show that it came directly from that education. Hopefully it did, but we don't necessarily have to prove that. So, and the same thing with geothermal and heat pumps. They look at, all those things require permits. So they have that data is there. So, there's certain thresholds that we need to reach to get certain number of points. I don't remember the exact details on it, but I'm going to be meeting with Portia Zwicker about maybe doing an EV fair, which we had done a couple of years ago. She had spearheaded that. So, yeah, just keep educating the community about how to renew, how to switch over to renewables.
Yeah. So our next two action tackles were to try and submit the training to get that initial $10,000, and then, like Vicky just said, try and run an EV event so that we can get the town registered, so we can start counting how many electric vehicles are bought in the town, to get us going. And then after that, hopefully we could, like you said, also do that for geothermal. But it's geothermal and heat pumps.
Exactly. Yeah. Even water pumps, I believe. It's pretty
Yeah,
electric.
she did say that. Yeah.
Air source. Yeah. Geothermal. It's pretty encompasses pretty much everything.
So are they looking for people to replace fossil fuels and move to heat pump or geothermal?
Yeah, because it's a Clean Energy Communities round 3. We got designated a clean energy community in round 1. In round 2 was fast. We did get one rebate in round 2. We got a rebate. No, we got 2 rebates in round 2. One for adopting the stretch code, and one for what's the other one we got for? I can't remember what the other one was, but that's how we ran our composting program, and that's how we were able to install the LED lights at Avon Crest Park. So round 2, we only got 10. Round 1, we got $100,000 from. Round 2, we got $10,000. Round 3, Vicky and I were kind of trying to work it out, but we could theoretically get, maybe 60.
Okay.
Good.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing was that, Laura, that you sent me that information, that email, which is tips for switching over to electric lawn equipment. It's a NYSERDA on the NYSERDA website. And there's some useful information. It's not super detailed, but from that, I was able to see that NYSERDA, it's, that the DEC itself is switching over. So I'm going to reach out to them and just see how that works, because I think that's sort of like a comparable situation that if we want to look at our town making that transition, we can talk to the DEC and see how that worked for them and what kinds of, challenges and issues came up, and try to sort of, be proactive with that.
Yeah, I thought that was exciting. And then the one other thing is the Transportation Council is going to do a demonstration day of kind of commercial heavy duty electric lawn equipment. So they did that recently for their heavies. They did bring in a bunch of like heavy duty, hard working equipment so that, highway superintendents or fleet managers could come and see how you could have like a UPS truck or something be all electric. And they had those big ones out there. And so now they're going to do it for electric lawn equipment. So they didn't know the exact day, but when that day comes, I'll try and remember to forward it to you guys, because anybody's allowed to go down there and look at it.
Yeah.
It's nice. They just do it on the parking lot of the Transportation Council, which is it's Wolf Road in that Travelers building. Yeah. So you can go and check it out.
Yeah.
Can you test drive? I'm just kidding.
I mean, they
Yeah.
maybe they're pretty open. When I went to the heavy duty electric equipment one, they had some vans and like a tractor and some other things there.
Because I can see some non-believers wanting to like feel it, that it's similar,
Yeah.
not better.
And what I thought was great about when they did the heavy equipment one is that the guys that were there were not like, I'm not being judgmental, but they weren't like clean cut guys in suits. They were like
Working men.
working guys
Yeah,
that
yeah.
were like, oh, you normally have, a blah, 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 blah engine. This is the equivalent of this, and this part works like that, and blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
so
And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But like, that's really what you need because,
Yes.
like, when I tell the highway department, why can't you just do electric? They're like, you don't understand anything that we do. And that is true. So, like, when they have some guy that can actually
Yeah.
say, that was very helpful.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to make sure we get that date out then if
Yeah.
people want to go to that.
Okay.
Good. Okay, next item.
Composting. Ellen sent the email. I don't know if she sent it to everybody, but the composting at the senior center is basically up and running
Oh, nice.
and will be good to go. She's gonna make sure that is all working and happy, and then tackle the next site.
And just really quick to add for next meeting on the SKIAC, we have a girl who's getting into composting clothing, or not composting, but recycling clothing and reusing it. So I'm going to get some more information and maybe bring it. I don't know if it can be part of composting or anything, but it's a pretty cool initiative because, I mean, clothing waste is one of the largest wastes. And
Yeah, and I don't think people realize you can recycle.
yeah,
clothing.
and she has a system. She's bringing all the information.
And actually, I did not know this until like yesterday, but clothing. Well, I knew that clothing is a little bit hazardous for the waste stream.
Yep.
It has chemicals in it and stuff that isn't great. But the building code of the state of New York actually classifies it as the same hazard level as tires.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, great. See?
So there's
That
stuff
doesn't really
in the
make me feel
clothing.
Oh my
comfortable.
Like bulk storage of it, because I think
Yes.
a bulk storage or bulk disposal of it has environmental problems
Absolutely.
associated with it.
There's a lot to it that I didn't even understand until she brought it up last time. So
That's
next
cool.
meeting, I'll try to get some info and bring it in. Maybe we could loop it in with something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
And wildlife corridors, I think still working on that with Georgia. Don't have a big update.
Okay.
And then the renewable energy expectations, this I put as an ongoing one there, so we can start talking about it.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to present?
I did not. I'm thinking like I was thinking what we should do is like maybe come up with a list of what we generally request for site plans,
Mhm.
flush it out, see where there's code that we can rely on, and then in places where there isn't code but we want to see this happen, like kind of look and see if we could add code or if we just want it to be a suggestion.
Mhm.
Just go through all the different items that we like to see on a site plan and then figure out what the mechanisms are for requiring it. So, I mean, it's nice to have a short meeting every once in a while, but we could just at least start the list and then we could just create a working document where we're adding these things and making sure that essentially every site goes through this checklist and we know when we can push and say you have to and when we can say please, but if they say no, we just have to move
But
on.
I'm wondering, since maybe we should send you a list of each of us, come up with a list and send it in the next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sure that-
So like with GE, we go through the regulars one that I can think of. We always like to see if they can add solar. We like to see if they can be pesticide free.
Yep.
We like to, my favorite thing is diversify the plantings
Yeah, absolutely.
and use native species. What are some of the other ones we like to see?
Well, we always talk about solar panels.
Yeah,
So
solar.
Solar.
Oh, high energy efficiency in the buildings.
Like lighting. and
Lighting. We like to see
heating
the,
systems.
yeah. What was it, Vicky?
Geothermal heating,
Yeah.
AC.
Is wind an option here in Niskayuna?
So I have a friend that works in the wind. She actually works in a company that sites wind farms throughout the United States, and she said that when when they look at Niskuna, it just does not have the wind to drive wind.
Yeah.
We
we're getting
actually, I think we actually have an ordinance to highly regulate wind,
No, our ordinance allows it. It's just that we just don't have enough wind to really.
but it's not, I thought it was like you needed a sizable parcel.
Oh, I could look at our ordinance.
We should look at that and see what that is, but I mean, I remember the CAC looking at this maybe 15 years ago. I mean, it was a long
Yeah.
time ago. It was before Laura, you were here.
Yeah, but and I mean, my friend can probably come talk to you guys
Yeah.
about it sometime if you want it, because she cites them all over the country. But she has said to me, because I was pestering her, and she said that Niskuna just does not produce the amount of wind that you need.
I
to
mean, look
put
at the storms that we
infrastructure.
never get. Like the snow, it just kind of like goes away from us. It's almost as though we're blocked in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
What about, I know this is a weird question, but like the locks, is there a way to like create renewable energy with that?
I don't know.
Do they have?
Kind of like tide energy.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a hydroelectric. that they
Yeah.
have.
Oh, well, they already
Oh,
have
Lock 7,
hydroelectric over there.
Oh, they
though.
do. Okay.
Yeah,
they
I was
do.
going to say, because there's so much power.
Yeah, Lock
behind that.
7, our side is the beautiful side where the boats go through and
Yeah.
you can launch your boat, but the Clifton Park side is the,
Power plant.
yeah, Fisher Ferry has the
Ah,
hydro
you're
power
right.
plant over there.
You're
Yeah.
right. Okay, cool. I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah. Although actually it's still pretty on the Fisher Ferry side. I go and have lunch there sometimes.
The Lock 7 is so pretty. I love going there.
Yeah, me too.
So basically just coming up with a list of renewable energy.
Yeah, I think what we
Options?
should do is everything that you think you would like to see
Yep.
new development have, and then I think what we could do is we could compile that list, and then what we have to really do, and this is probably the most important part, is come up with a uniform list and see how that meshes with the regulatory requirements of both the seeker and the town code, and see where we land. Because
Yeah.
you know, it's very different to make an ask for something, but it's another thing if we actually say you must do this. You know?
Well, yeah, and the other thing is, timing wise, it's difficult to open up the zoning code because of the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the planning board is going to consider opening up the zoning code this year, probably for Airbnb regulations. So
So
once
you
it's
open
open,
Yeah.
that's the time, and you might be able to add some stuff in there
Yeah.
too for what you guys are thinking. So
And it'll give us like a bullet point checklist
Yeah.
that we can just run through whenever we have proposals that come
yeah,
up.
and if we know that we have code on certain things, we can push much harder.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if
exactly.
we
And
know
it's
that it's
consistent.
mostly an ask, we can be like, well, did you think about this?
Yeah.
What about this?
I was thinking
The-
about that with General Electric, how we were really pushing for things, but we don't push as hard when other proposals are made. So I want to make sure we're asking the same questions for everybody.
And the other thing is, if we have a good list, we can even give them to ahead of time. Like GE came
Yeah.
prepared, which is nice, but we can give them to ahead of time because sometimes it's good for them to marinate in the list. It
Yeah.
can be like, it can take a little while to digest it and decide what you're going to do with it, you know?
Exactly. I love that.
No, I agree.
Awesome.
Okay, so you guys' homework then
Yeah.
is either on a group thread or just email me. I don't really care
Why don't
either
we
way.
just email you?
Okay, just
and
email me,
it's
no group
easier.
thread. That things that you like to regularly ask for in site plan,
Yeah.
site plan or subdivision. We may have to do 2 separate lists, and then we'll start compiling a checklist that we can use.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be renewable energy. We called it that because we're very solar, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
heating, energy driven. But like I know Ashok always talks about pesticide and LOMO, so it can have stuff like that in there too.
Yeah, anything that you think should be in there.
Increasing public transportation, like you said earlier, like that's a really good way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Like there's, yeah, once my brain starts going, then I'll be able to compile it in a list a little better. I like that though.
Okay, do we have any other business we'd like to discuss? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, I'd say the meeting's adjourned.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Great night, everyone.
Guys.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Vicky.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.